Hey, welcome and thank you for joining me, jumping in today and checking this out. Usually my live streams are not quite so tactical. They're usually more conceptual, but I had a group coaching call this morning where we stumbled across this question, and it was so important because the way that you deal with something like this has a lot to do with the deeper sort of mechanics of stage fright and confidence to begin with. So I want to, hey Alex, I want to address this for you. The question was, or the situation was, my student spoke maybe a week ago, and she had to speak right after someone who was a trained, seasoned, very, very effective presenter. And she's sitting there watching this guy present, and he's killing it. He's slaying it. And she's just like, oh my God, how do I go after this? How do you follow that, right? And she wanted to give up. She wanted to hide. She was stressing. It was intimidating. So there is a great lesson to be learned here. And by the way, I apologize for looking so fuzzy and fluffy today, but I had to get this to you while it was fresh. I'm literally going to go from here to get a haircut. Normally I like to look a little better on camera, but this is too important. I got to get this out there for you guys. So what do you do? What do you do if you got to follow someone who's a tough act to follow? What do you do if you got little feet and you have to fill big shoes? Any ideas on that? Because it'll happen. If you're serious about speaking, it will happen. So here's how we address that, okay? The solution, which is just the surface, the solution is to, actually, Patricia Mayo-Lutz, yeah, pretty much. You got that right. She says, as you can see, own it, call it out. Let me dive deeper into that than that. What you have to do is to acknowledge that person. But more than that, acknowledge that you're now in the unenviable position of having to follow that. That's going to do a lot of things. It's going to get the audience sympathetic. It's going to get them on your side. It's going to make you look like a guide and not like an infallible hero, right? So it's actually very, very advantageous, if you do it right, to follow somebody who's very, very powerful. Because another thing that will happen, if you own it, if you acknowledge it and you do it right, what will happen is you will step your game up. But if you're caught in silently, internally having this, oh my God, how do I follow them? I'm not as good as they are. You won't step your game up. You will just freak out. The thing about this that's important to understand is you don't ever want to be analyzing what you're doing while you're on stage. You need to do all that work ahead of time, behind the scenes. When you're on stage, you need to be able to just show up and shine. Like, I can't stress that enough. You need to be able to just be an avatar. Be a conduit. Hey, Marshall, good to see you, buddy. You are your message. You are not the human being with their frailty and all that stuff and their ego. You are the fucking message, and it's important to understand that. So how can we do that? Well, I will give you an example from my own event last year. I had an event last year, and I invited my friend, my good friend, Cornell Thomas, to come and speak. Cornell, as it turns out, is a powerhouse speaker. I had seen his videos a few times, and if I'm being honest, I thought, yeah, he's pretty good. Very different to see him do it live. When Cornell spoke, he was like a floodlight. He was just, boom! He lit up the whole place. Thanks, Marshall. And in fact, Marshall was there at the event. I had to follow Cornell. I had to go on after Cornell, which required me to recalibrate my ego, which I didn't even realize was in play. Now, I didn't realize it until I had to follow somebody who absolutely crushed it, that I had an ego about being the best sort of performer and presenter there. And, I got put to the test. So here's exactly what I did. Here's exactly what I coach my student to do. Here's exactly what you should do. I went up, I looked at Cornell, I hugged him, I shook his hand, and as he walked off stage, I kind of went like that. And then I asked the audience, how the hell do you follow that? Right? Here's what happens when you do that. It disarms and diffuses all of the insecurity that you're having. See, insecurity can only live in the darkness of not being put out there on Front Street. If you just say it, you take all of its power away. It's very important to understand that. When you start getting into, oh man, how do I follow that? You're in your head. You cannot deliver well from your head. I don't care what anyone else says. You can't be your best if you're up here. You need to be connected here, here, and here. And what you can't see is that I'm touching my head, heart, and gut. They all have to be connected so that you can move effortlessly, liquid through all three spots as needed. Because, see, it's not about you. When you're speaking and delivering a message, especially if you're in this group and you're in my world, the odds are overwhelmingly in favor of you being someone who I would call a transformational speaker, or someone who at least wants to be a transformational speaker. You do not want to read from cue cards. You do not want to read from bullet point slides. You want to get up there and rock it. You are banking on getting so into the zone that you're learning as you speak, right? That kind of level where it's just coming through you cannot happen while you're in your head. We good? We understand this? Good. So I want to give you the analogy of, of James DeRowan. Now, none of you guys know James DeRowan, and if you do, that is a cosmic fluke of epic proportions. James was a good friend of mine in the 7th, 8th, and 9th grade. James was very short. James had a big nose. He was kind of funny looking, right? And he was also Teflon. Like, I don't know what your 7th, 8th, and 9th grades were like, but mine was all about trying to look good and all about like having no chinks in the armor that people can tease or make fun of. Like, it was very social conscious, and it was like you live or die by people's making fun of you and stuff like that, right? Just a second. Patricia says, I was wondering how I could ever get on cue cards and slides. Hallelujah, I'm not a total weirdo. You are a total weirdo, but you do not need cue cards and slides. But you have to master your content first. And second, you have to create that space in you so that you can just shine. So, back to James DeRowan. The thing about James was everyone liked him. I mean, everyone. And of course, high school and middle school is very cliquish. Geeks, dweebs, jocks, nerds, etc., right? Every group liked James. And I used to just be so in awe of how was that possible, especially in middle school and high school. But everybody liked him. And here was the secret. No matter what you tried to say about him, it would just slide off his back. He would never show shame or embarrassment or anything about anything. I remember one time some kid made a joke about him being short, and we had a young, I think she was an art teacher, and she was very attractive, and so all the boys talked about her behind her back. Sorry, that's just how it was. And somebody made a joke at lunch about how short James was, and it just, without even blinking, he said, I know, I don't even have to, he's like, I can almost look up Miss So-and-so's skirt without laying down. Everybody laughed. Everybody fell out of the place laughing. There's an object lesson there. And you can take this object lesson and allow it to be part of your own speaking. You can't faze someone who doesn't hide their nervousness and embarrassment and shame inside, right? That's how you rock the stage after a giant. That's how you have little feet and fill big shoes. That's what it's about, right? How are we doing with this so far? We good? Because I tell you, what you're getting here will save your ass one day for sure. And as I said, normally I'm not so tactical and strategic, but this was so good in the coaching call this morning, I had to share it with you guys. Because if you're committed to sharing your message, to being a speaker, Hamid, hey man, good to see you. If you're committed to this process, you're going to have a time when you have to go on stage after somebody who just impressed the hell out of you. This is how you do it, right? You don't get in your head. You don't allow that to happen. To stay in that space of being a conduit for your message, just call it out, acknowledge it, say what it is, say how it made you feel. That's all you have to do. Listen, guys, as always, I want to thank you for jumping on, for supporting me, for Sean Douglas, for being part of this live stream and absorbing this message. I have an amazing membership community if you'd like more of this. Now, it's not for everyone, of course. It does cost money. There is an investment. The investment is incredibly reasonable. The base level is a little more than $1 a day. And if you'd like to get more help, support, guidance, and coaching around not only the art of delivery, but the business of speaking, give me a shout. Drop a message in the comments below, and we can talk about getting you in at one or the other level of the new membership community. You're going to love it if you join it. It's amazing, and it will definitely compress that learning curve for you. Okay? All right. Thanks, you guys.